So hey friends, welcome to this week's video. I know I've been away for a bit, work's been crazy, so I wanted to try to get back into the swing of things with a backpack that I've been using for a few months now. And this is the Troubadour Apex. There's a couple backpacks in their series with a lot of different colors, but this is the one that we're focusing on today. This is something that I've been working for work, something I would use for travel. So I've used it in a bunch of different scenarios, and I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about this guy, especially because everyone calls it a little turtle shell, but I did want to talk about that shape and more things, so let's get into it.
So the Apex series has a few different variants. They have an all-leather version, they have a full-size version, they have a compact version, they have a mini version and a sling version. The two versions that I see here are the full-size one, which is a 26 liter, and the compact version, which is a 16 liter. So the 16 liter actually works really well if you want to be a little bit more discreet, be able to travel a bit more compact and tactical, and like maneuver a little bit better. And it did, for the most part, fit all of my gear. It was just extremely tight. So it was a little bit hard to put in both an iPad and a laptop, which is very common for me because I have to do that for work and show and demo things on mobile. It was just a little bit less flexibility than I wanted because, you know, sometimes I want to carry a camera, sometimes I want to have a gaming system with me, sometimes I want to carry more cables, sometimes I need batteries, sometimes I want to put a tripod. So just having the extra flexibility of the full size was much more preferred because I still had plenty of space in there, and it wasn't a really big task to get things out. It was really easy to find things. The thing swung open relatively wide so I could find things even on the bottom. So overall, it was just nicer to be able to access my gear without having to spill out everything to find everything and resituate it. It was just a lot easier to pack day to day with different loadouts, which we'll get over later in the review. But for this review, we are focused on the full size one. So if you're interested in other sizes, I'm sorry, but the full size one is the one I picked, so that's the reason why I'm focusing on it for this review. In terms of sizing, this fits on my back relatively well. Again, sits right above the butt, just very nicely, and it doesn't take too much space on the back like some of the other, like, you know, camping inspired backpacks. This is very good for work. It's very sleek, it's discreet, it's not too big. There's nice wide straps that make it very comfortable, and overall, it just sucks to the back very nicely. It doesn't sway too hard, and it's very strong. In terms of aesthetics, it's relatively nice. I think that's the reason why a lot of people like this bag, is because it just has this nice structured body that looks very professional and sleek. The material that they use too on top of that is very nice in terms of looks and how it sort of maintains its overall aesthetic. It's very durable, it is abrasion resistant, and it has nice detailing, especially towards the top where they use more of a leather and leatherette even on the pull tabs. However, for the areas that are not that leather, is just a strange kind of thing that I've noticed where in certain tinting it changes color. So sometimes you get a Christmas backpack. Not a terrible thing because obviously you're not going to be in that tinted situation a lot, but just some quirk that I saw with the bag and how it interacts with light. So while I do like the material, I do find it a little bit hard to clean. So you can see here that there's something that happened. I'm not sure what was on this bag, but it wasn't able to get out with soap and water, so I actually had to come in with detergent. So this is just something to keep in mind as you're looking through this bag. There is just some cleaning to consider. In terms of the carry handle, it's super comfortable. It is nice and thick and very easy to hold in hand. It's very nice and squishy to it, and it has a nice rubber grip on the bottom, so really easy to hold in hand, pull from, you know, overhead storage, or just hold it at your side if you going into a meeting room and you don't want to sling it over your shoulder. It's very, very comfortable in the hand, so this is one of the nicer features in terms of comfort that I do like out of this bag. And then as we move into the pocket, it is super deep and super wide, so I feel like this would fit most water bottles and even, like, you know, documents and other things like that. It also does have a little bit of partition where that elastic is, so you have some flexibility to put a tripod in here and have a little bit of security, but it is a really wide pocket, which can be convenient, but we'll talk about that more later. As we talk about the backing, it's super well padded. I love how thick the padding is on this backpack. It's just very well plushy, it's very well aerated, it's super comfortable on back, so no problems here, no complaints at all. This is one of the most comfortable padding systems that I felt on a backpack, and I'm really impressed what Troubadour is doing here. And of course, there's a luggage pass-through, so you can strap this onto your luggage handles as long as it's narrow handle, but The thing that's nice about this one is it's nicely padded and thick. Again, this is contributing to the comfort of this bag, and not something you see with a lot of different backpacks. So I am appreciative that they put the consideration on my lower back here, especially on those high capacity days. And in terms of its actual function as a trolley sleeve, it is super stable. It is super nice. I've had to be run through airports because I was late for flights tons of times, and it's been able to stay stable. It doesn't really sway the luggage at all, and it doesn't really move around. It's locked in. I really like how locked in it is. Moving on to the actual backpack straps themselves, they are thick and padded. They do have nice material on it, again, that they use on most of the other backpack, but I do like the fact that on one side it does have this sort of compartment, which is really good for keys and other little documents that you might need quick access to. I like the fact that it has that sort of expandability, so you do have some flexibility on how you want to use it. It doesn't necessarily have to be single purpose. It just is there, and it doesn't encumber from the comfort of the strap. For me, this is usually where I carry my keys, but in Japan, this is really nice before I understood what a Suica card was. This is great for all the passes that I needed to carry around for, intercity travel or, different city travel. It's just nice having those cards really close to chest, so I could easily pull them out for all the different kiosks so they wouldn't get lost. And in terms of the adjustment straps, there are a sort of retention mechanism that keeps the extra fabric close to the whole strap. And this is nice because you don't have little danglies coming out anywhere, and it really just keeps everything really sleek and really professional looking. So if this is important for you, this is something that you'll like. And again, if you need to remove it for any reason, you can. It's just not the easiest thing to remove, but you can remove it if you do need to. But overall, fully packed, this thing was super comfortable. I loved walking around with it, and I didn't really get hot. We were there as it was starting to get hotter in Japan, and I didn't really have issues doing all the tourism stuff, carrying around all of our souvenirs and gear. This thing never got hot on me, and I sweat a ton. So I loved how ventilated this was. I love how padded it was. It really made doing tourism stuff pleasurable no matter what. So as we talk about loadouts, I do have some pretty standard things I carry around. I always carry around a pen because there's always something I need to write. I do carry a charging pack and cables, because obviously, especially for travel, I just need to be able to have extra charge if I'm caught in a pinch and I can't get to a desk or whatever. I always carry some sort of collapsible jacket or some kind of overcoat or mid-layer, to really help me out there just in case there's any change in weather. For this trip, I obviously carried a camera. I didn't really have a big case or anything in there, so I really just was relying on the protection of this bag and that coat that I had in there. I know some of you guys are gonna make fun of me, but outside of that, I also carried additional batteries. There were also cables, cases, just some kind of soft materials for the trip. I also brought a portable tripod for any case where I can just clip anywhere, and it just really worked well in that zip-up pocket that they have in there. So everything kind of had a place, and I really liked how everything kind of locked down inside the bag, and it didn't feel like it was wobbling around. In Japan, I also loaded this up in a couple different ways, so using the front pocket for any sort of cache, Wi-Fi units, also some dongles and microphones I needed access to quickly. Obviously the tripod, again, same spot, pretty easy. Some camera straps and some cables, very easily stored in there. As we talked about before, always need some kind of charging. I even brought a larger charger for my laptop and all those sort of things when we were going between cities. We started getting gotchas, so I started throwing those gotchas in that compressive pocket on the front. Everything else is just mostly what we talked about before. Jacket, this time headphones. Again, this is a lighter loadout, but it was nice to have some flexibility here. And then that large water bottle pocket that accommodated my Stanley Cross bottle. And if I talk about how I pack it on the daily, like when I'm back at home, I use that compressive pouch there for all of my cables and dongles and memory cards. Again, a pen, always. But then I'm going to need a charger, so I usually throw that into the big zippered pocket since I'm not using it for tripods on the daily. Those smaller pockets are really nice for smaller cameras, so the pocket is perfect in that, very secure, doesn't really jostle around. And it's enough space to actually bring in the extra battery, which doubles as a tripod, and I can clip the microphone that I usually use for a lot of these recordings when I'm mobile. There's enough space because it's so deep to put in my lunch. I can even put in a giant smoothie that I usually do in the morning to keep all of my nutrition in place. And then all of my sort of keys and ID badges I need for work, I throw in that front pocket just so I can easily access them. And in the front pocket, there is that carabiner clip, but for me, I usually put it in the strap like I mentioned before. And of course, there's that giant pocket in there for your laptop. And for me, usually an iPad, but I think I'm skipping out on it this time because I don't need to bring that this day. But I do have that option. And again, this bag fits it all and is why it's my daily driver currently. In that front pocket, another thing to note is that there is a small pocket there, just a little elastic there that can hold your Apple AirTag or any sort of GPS tag that you have, which is nice for geolocation and finding your bag if you end up losing it.
All right, so now that we've talked about this bag and everything it has to offer from, specs perspective, how it looks, what it can store, we should probably talk about how this actually performs. So I've took this to Japan, as I mentioned before. I use it for work all the time, both, traveling, at home, just around the city. So a ton of different scenarios that I've used this over the past few months. And there are some things that are really quirky about this that I think that we should talk about. So let's go over that.
So I know I talked about how wide that water bottle holder was and how it fit my cross bottle pretty perfectly. This was actually probably the perfect size and shape for it, at least what I thought, because of how wide my water bottle is. Not a lot of water bottle holders really hold that well. This one fit in perfectly and I was really happy. Except there is a flaw in design here because I think it's just not tall enough and the slant actually makes it less secure. So it is nice aesthetically, it keeps the lines very sharp, but because there's that slant, it does have more probability of slipping out. And that's something that I started noticing during Japan when we're moving around a lot more and I'm taking it in and out of the luggage sleeve. This was just not a secure fit. And I would imagine if you had a slimmer water bottle, this thing would fall out all the time. So I'm going to show you some clips here of my water bottle status right now, and it's banged up. And again, this was in a perfect condition going in, but throughout the trip, I was just freaking people out on the train because this thing would slip out of the case all the time. So there's dings here, there's dings on the bottom. I even put a Gengar little sticker on it to kind of show or like hide some of that damage that had happened. But this thing was falling out all over the place. It was super embarrassing because it was loud when it crashed. So the pockets for water bottles kind of suck. They might be good for like tripods or like documents or just things you need to grab in really quickly, but for water bottles, no. The other thing that I want to talk about is these little clips that I talked about before. These clips, in terms of like retention, they're not too bad. They actually do really well, but they do tend to kind of grasp onto jackets when you're trying to take off the thing, or if you're wearing a tank top, sometimes that can get caught in it and then all that can kind of fall through or things can get caught in it. But I think the biggest thing for the straps that are a bigger issue is that they're just not padded or long enough. So this is where I'd normally hit this, just right above my butt, like I mentioned before. But because the buckles are not part of the strap itself, it's kind of just hanging down. And as a result, like I could see this pinching skin or something like that. And it doesn't really give you a lot of flexibility to wear this more, relaxed. It really has not enough padding to me where I think that the buckles will touch skin, especially if you're wearing a tank top or if you're shirtless or whatever, that these, the buckles may just rub and irritate. Normally with backpacks, I've seen the buckle kind of, or the padding extends beyond the buckle so that you don't have this issue. But for this backpack, it's just separated. And I think this is going to be an issue for comfort. But the biggest issue is waterproofing. This bag is purported to be waterproof. Zippers, materials, fluoro, blah, 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 waterproofing put on it. We got stuck in a rainstorm in Japan and I had gear in here. I had receipts, I had paper, I had electronics. And I was like, okay, cool. It's starting to rain randomly. Let me put all this stuff away. I have a waterproof backpack, right? Well, to my surprise, this thing's not that waterproof. So once we got a time to like kind of relax, find some shelter, hang out and have some tea with some old lady, we found out this backpack really was not waterproof. I found that my receipts were super wet. I found my papers were super wet. I found my tech was condensated and wet. It was just not a great thing, especially because I just got the Fujifilm camera. I was freaking out because this thing was not, my camera wasn't turning on because of the rain. So That's a big thing to me that I was freaked out about, that it just really seeped in water. The other thing is, after the rain, is like the bag kind of stayed dark. It never really returned to its like uniform green color. It just had this darkness in the non-leather areas that I found was a big issue. Just because I think the aesthetics is a big thing why people buy this. And on top of just the color, it just lost shape. It's no longer that sexy straight line thing. I have this frumpy, sad looking bag that doesn't retain its own shape when there's nothing in it. That also made the front pocket really hard to use, which never used to be an issue, because sometimes it's just like all out of whack. And that top part that is kind of nice and turtle shelly, you really have to like reframe it after you dry.
So on to recommendations. It's a little bit of a mixed bag here, just because I can see why people would love this bag. It's super pretty. Again, before it got wet, the shape was really attractive. It's very compact, very nice lines and all that sort of thing, as well as I really like the organization in here. It's just a good mix of like just enough organization for work purposes, but also enough expandability and flexibility with the cavity inside the bag for me to put in extra jackets. You know, I can put both my iPad and a large laptop in there, as well as, you know, gaming devices, cameras, all that sort of stuff still would fit in this and look very sleek on back without, you know, being too much of a big sway and moving around. It's very nice and tight. Again, comfort on this bag is amazing. Like the amount of padding they put, the thought on the straps, the expandability even inside the straps, and then like some of the lockdown components really just makes this a breeze. However, like I said, waterproofing isn't there and structure isn't there, especially after getting wet. So I could see that people wanting to spend like $250, $300 on a bag would want this bag to keep its shape and really keep that handsomeness that makes this so eye-catching. So that's the reason, the biggest reason why I don't think I can recommend this, because I feel like a lot of people will be disappointed after daily use, especially if you don't live in a super dry climate. You know, if you live in colder areas, or you know, you get caught in rain, this isn't going to be really ideal, just because it's going to go frumpy on you and just lose all of that attractiveness. But you know, if you live in Arizona and it doesn't rain and you know, you're getting scorched to death, this might be fine because it'll keep its shape, stay crispy, all that sort of thing. So right now, I think there's just a lot of bags out there at that $300 price range, the $250 to $300 price range, where it can do a little bit more, just be a little bit more consistent performance, and that you want to really baby. This one, you kind of have to baby, but again, perfect for work, especially if you're in dry climates, and it's just really, really handsome. So I understand why people like this, but I just can't recommend it for all of those reasons of inconsistency. But hopefully you guys like the review. If you have any questions about this bag, the brand, or any of the sizing, I did play around with a lot of them before I got to this sizing. I am keeping it around, so despite me not recommending it, I spent the money. I have some buyer's remorse, but it works functionally as a backpack, so I'm going to be using it to get my $250 to $270 worth of bag. But yeah, if you have any questions, put it in the comments. If you could, please like, comment, subscribe, do all the things you normally do on a video that you like and love. And I'm sorry for being absent. I will be, you know, posting more often. I'm trying to go for like a video every 2 weeks just to ramp up, but I'm hopefully getting back to that video a week sort of timeline. It just work's been crazy, as I mentioned before, but it's been clearing up, so hopefully I can get more consistent with you and see you guys more on a weekly basis. But as always, I appreciate you. See you soon.
I think you're good. From this side. I will from this side.